אבל רק בתנאי שזה מעביר טוב, זה לא מעביר טוב, איך נדע? אני יודע איך נדע. You'll be there and wait for me to come back. אוי ואי, יש לנו פה תקלה, יוסטון. עצור הכל, אל תשחק. יאללה, בואו נשחק. Outer Wilds. Well then, I see you come before me. ואנחנו רצים על 3,000 קילובייט לשנייה. זה אומר שהמשחק משודר ביוטיוב. מתחילים. כמה זמן חיכיתי למשחק הזה. וואו, כל השבוע שעבר חיכיתי לבוא למשחק הזה. ואז משהו קרה קצת ונעלם לי הרצון והחשק לחזור אליו. שזה לא קשור בכלל למשחק אגב. אבל אני יודע טוב מאוד שעצרתי בנקודה קריטית ביותר במשחק. שהיא הסוף שלו. הסוף של המשחק. אחרי מסיים את המשחק. אבל לא בדיוק יודע איך עושים את זה כי חסר לי פה נתונים. זה לא זמן עכשיו להיכנס לדברים הקטנים האלה, נו. צריך לא להסתכל על הוואטסאפ הזה. רגע, בוא נראה, החבלים גם עושים צל? לא. הם עושים צל, אבל נראה לי הוא מלאכותי. לא, הנה. מה אני אשחק לך שאני אסיים את המשחק הזה? המשחק הזה הוא פשוט הכי טוב ששחקתי בחיי. מה עושים? מה משחקים אחרי The Outer Wilds? זה רגע טוב להגיד את זה. תחשוב, אני חושב שזה באמת משחק כזה. זה משחק כמו The Witcher, ברמת פעם ב. ואני לא יודע, איפה החיים? אני חושב שזה קשור לזה. ביי! להפחדת. אני למדתי איך מגיעים ל-Sixth Location. ומה למדנו? למדנו ש... הנה זה רשום פה. אני יודע מה רציתי לעשות. רציתי להיכנס שוב פעם לאזור הזה בכוכב, להבין את הסדר הכרונולוגי של דברים, כי זה כזה מהר. איך עושים את זה? רק שזה, לנדינג גיר, המשיך לנסוע. אני זוכר איך מגיעים לשם. וואו. I'm down. רגע, זה בכיוון ההפוך? צא, טייס, צא! To the sun. לא! 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 איזה שטות השיר הזה. אני חוזר. מה, החללית מתרוממת כשאני עושה את זה? למה? ראיתי את זה. לא! מה זה? Oh my fucking god. לא חווים דברים כאלה. Oh my god. מה קורה פה לעזאזל? איך מגיעים לשם? איך אני עכשיו אעשה את זה? בסדר. is what I want. Tower. Wow, tower. Warp Tower design, namely that one of the Warp Tower on Ash Twin will never be. Of note, Yarrow believes he spotted a flaw in the Warp Tower's design. Namely, that one of the warp towers on Ash Twin will never activate, because its warp receiver will never align overhead. Does your romantic interest think a warp tower alignment point is its receiver? כוס עם מה? אני מבין. ראיתי את זה. אבל מה לעזאזל? למה המצלמה לא מראה אותי? מה זה הבניין הזה? מה זה? נסים? פאקינג וואו, זה לא מה שתכננתי. Zanim wiem. הכל נשאר ללא מענה חוץ מהמרכז. שטויים. How the fuck do I solve it? איך אני פותר את זה, יא רבי? אין שם. I fucking don't know. איך? רגע, אני... אומיי, אומיי, אומיי. זה עבד לי. יש לי תגלית. אומיי פאקינג גאד. זה הולך לקרות. הולך לקרות המשחק. אני בסאן סטיישן? מה? No user command received. לא! מה קרה פה? מה זה? מה זה? מה זה? מה קרה פה? מה זה היה? Oh my fucking god. Oh fuck. הייתי כל כך קרוב לשמש והסתובבתי סביבה, איזה מפחיד זה היה. בחיים לא הסתובבתי כל כך מהר סביב השמש ולא נשאבתי כל כך מהר פנימה. אני מבין למה הסאן סטיישן מסתובב כל כך טוב, הייתי באנרציה שלו. הייתי באנרציה של הסאן סטיישן. אומייגאד. אבל זה לשאב פנימה. למה? זה זמן מוקצב. וואו, זה טמטם אותי עכשיו. אני מבין את המורכבות של העניין הזה, אבל זה לא נורמלי מה שקרה פה. זה פאקינג לא נורמלי. הולכים אותי כזה קרוב לשמש. שאני כל כך רגיל לפחד ממנה. כזה קרוב אליה. כזה קרוב אליה. ליטרלי. נגעתי בה. נשרפתי תוך כדי. אומייגאד. מה זה היה? Oh my fucking A. Sun station. Oh my god, they are fucking big. Way too big for someone to handle. Wow, 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 wow. This is fucking unbelievable. Fucking unbelievable. So many secrets. So many secrets. This is fucking scary. עובד שמפוצץ את השמש. Take me. מה יהיה עם זה? What? וואו. מה הרגע קרה פה? שאלה טובה מה יקרה עכשיו. אוקיי. אני לא יודע איך לפתור את זה. באמת שלא. מה? فاهم. מה זה, מה אני אומר?
Hello everyone, I am the Lore Explorer and this is Outer Wilds, the open world exploration game focusing on the mystery of an ancient race of aliens called the Nomai. I thought it would be nice to dedicate a video to the timeline of the Nomai and some of the major events that happened to them. This video will consist entirely of spoilers, so if you haven't played the game already yourself, I suggest clicking off the video now. Species, comprised of many separate clans of Nomai, all out independently exploring the universe. Every 10 years, all of the Nomai clans came together at something they called the Festival. There, they would share all of the discoveries they've made in the last decade. This was very important to the Nomai, as the core philosophy of the Nomai was to seek out the unknown and to observe them to understand them. On the way to this event, the clan leader Eskel was shown something even more exciting than the festival. Their vessel received a very unique signal that looks eerily like an eye. And, if the readings were right, it's older than the universe itself. Eskel immediately orders his crew to warp the vessel to the source of this signal, to inform the other Nomai clans where they are going. Just as quickly as it showed up, they didn't spare the time for the message. Though Eskel was right about the significance, that choice proved to be a bad one. The Nomai fell into a trap, the trap of Dark Bramble. The mysterious signal they received bounced through Dark Bramble in its many dimensions. So when the Nomai followed it, they found themselves inside a multi-dimensional maze. The vines on Dark Bramble sprang to action, jumping at the vessel and started to tear it apart. The Nomai on board quickly found themselves to launch it from. So all of the Nomai turned their attention to what they called the Ash Twin Project, a myriad of new buildings and advanced technology.
Hello everyone, my name is Sam Halcyon, and welcome to my video, where I attempt to explain the ending of Outer Wilds. If, like me, you played through the game and you thoroughly enjoyed it, and you got to the end and you felt like there was still a lot left unanswered, don't worry, you're not alone. The ending of Outer Wilds, I think, is kind of intentionally open-ended. They sort of leave you to kind of fill in a lot of the blanks. So in this video, I'm going to attempt to just give you my perspective of what I think happened in the end. But before we go any further, fair warning, there are obviously a ton of spoilers in this video, so if you haven't played this game yet, hit stop immediately, go out and buy this game and play it. I can't recommend it enough. Otherwise, there is a link in the description down below to a playthrough that I did recently. I'm a little late to the party, but I am very glad I finally got around to playing this game because it is well worth it. Right, without further ado, let's get on with it. So, the game draws a lot on astrophysics and quantum physics, and these two sciences don't really play well together. Astrophysics works in its own enclosed system, and quantum physics works in its own enclosed system, but when you try and mix the two together, they just don't correspond and they don't add up, and things just go a little haywire. This game kind of imagines a world where the two do play nice together, where they do work together, where you've got physical matter and large astral bodies behaving in a very similar fashion to atoms and molecules and how they behave at the quantum level. So essentially, I don't profess to be an expert in either of these two fields. I just watch a lot of Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I highly recommend you watch the episode that I've listed in the description down below. It does cover a lot of the concepts and the topics that this game plays around with. So, what little I do know about quantum mechanics, I know that electrons, which are the negatively charged subatomic particles that orbit the nucleus, orbits around the nucleus. until it is measured or observed. So as soon as other people believe that it's just this physical act of measuring where the electron is that forces it into a particular orbit. There's a very famous saying, which I'm sure you've all heard, which is, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? Now, this comes from a theory or a metaphor that arose out of this kind of concept, which was, if you have a tree behind you and you're not looking at it, it exists in all possible positions until you turn around and look at it. At which point, your physical act of observing the tree forces it to snap into existence and forces it to snap into that particular position where you are seeing it. Concept, but that is definitely what Mobius Digital is drawing on very, very heavily in this game. You can see it with the fact that, you know, your shuttle is made of wood. There's pine trees everywhere. There's trees on the moon. Trees feature incredibly heavily throughout this game, and it's very, very much drawing on that metaphor or that concept or example. Feature forces it to snap. Observing the tree forces it to snap where you are seeing it. But these concept or example. So you're probably wondering, like, what the hell has this got to do with anything, and what has it got to do with the ending of Outer Wilds? Well, it's just laying the foundation or the groundwork for the next concept that the game plays around with quite a bit, which is a multiverse. So the idea that we are just living in one instance of an infinite amount of possible universes. And where this thinking comes from is theorizing what it was like before the Big Bang, when everything in existence was compressed down to a tiny little point, and all matter, everything we know, all the rules of science and physics were all compressed down to a tiny point. In the interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, he says that in that instance, although physics and quantum physics don't play nicely together, in that scenario, quantum physics would most likely win. Quantum physics would most likely win out in that battle. And in that instance, matter and physics would then behave in a quantum manner. So you would have atoms popping in and out of existence, which would mean that entire universes could be popping in and out of existence constantly within this singularity. And when the Big Bang happened, our universe was just one of these possibilities. So the third concept that Outer Wilds plays around with is something called tachyons. And this is just a theorized particle that moves backwards in time. So according to Einstein's theory of relativity, matter cannot reach the speed of light. The closer you get to reaching the speed of light, the slower time moves for you. So if you were to jump in a shuttle and go so fast that you were approaching the speed of light, someone on the outside looking in would see you moving in sort of extreme slow motion. And when your shuttle came to a halt, you would then effectively be in the future. Time would have slowed down for you, your aging process would have slowed down, but the rest of the world would have carried on without you. Everyone you know would be dead, and you would be basically in the future. So with tachyons, they kind of theorize, well, what would actually happen if a particle could go faster than the speed of light? And the theory says that it would then start actually moving backwards in time. And it's impossible to do this experiment. It's impossible to measure it because, I mean, how do you measure a particle that's whizzing past you in the opposite direction in terms of time? But this is definitely what Mobius Digital is drawing on quite heavily with the warp technology. So when you step into the black hole, you arrive, or your particles in your body kind of travel so quickly that they turn into tachyons and actually start going backwards in time. So the reason you're arriving before you left is because you're actually time traveling, you're going backwards in time. And that's how the Nomai mask technology works. So this brings us to the eye of the universe. What is it? The Nomai kind of believed it was a sentient being that was calling out to them and had chosen them as a species to witness something or to learn some kind of forbidden knowledge. But in the end, through just sheer random luck and circumstance, the Nomai are kind of wiped out, and it turns out that it's actually just an unassuming, unwitting Hearthian who in fact eventually gets to meet and to experience the eye of the universe. We also know that through a couple of data logs from Solanum, that Solanum had her doubts about the eye being sentient. She kind of believed that the universe simply is and we are, meaning that there is no deeper meaning, there's no kind of religious meaning behind it. So she was pretty convinced that the eye of the universe was in fact just a force of nature. And in my personal opinion, so this is just my conjecture, going through all of this science and all of this actual factual, or not factual, but theoretical knowledge that Mobius is drawing on, I am pretty certain that that was what they were kind of going for. They do leave it very, very open-ended. They kind of leave it up to you to decide and kind of take whatever meaning from it that you want. But if I was a betting man, I would say that was the actual intended sort of function of the eye of the universe. So if the eye of the universe wasn't sentient, and it wasn't calling out to the Nomai, and it wasn't calling out to us as a Hearthian, what then is it? What is its function? What does it do? Well, if we look at the bizarre events leading up to the final ending, we can start to kind of piece together what I think Mobius was going for. If we look back at our encounter with Solanum on the quantum moon, she told us that the quantum moon is in fact the eye of the universe's moon, and it exhibits quantum phenomenon because of its proximity to the eye of the universe. So basically anything that's close to or comes into contact with the eye of the universe becomes quantumly entangled. They become uncertain, as the game kind of describes it. And the only way to get rid of that uncertainty is through an observer. So a conscious observer essentially snaps a quantum object back into existence, at least in the confines of this game. And Solanum was wondering what would happen if a conscious observer who has the power almost of creation, in a sense, were to enter the eye of the universe and become quantumly entangled themselves. So, keeping this in mind, as we jump into the vortex and fall through what appears to be some kind of a wormhole and make our way past the odd columns of kind of grey matter with lightning everywhere, eventually we end up back at the observatory, back on Timber Earth. But things are a little odd, things are a little strange. I think what's basically going on here is Mobius is just kind of hammering home or reminding us that we are an observer in this realm of kind of quantum uncertainty. We're in an observatory. We are walking past, observing all of the various displays in the museum. They're just kind of reiterating this concept for us. We then make our way upstairs, where we are presented with what appears to be a miniature universe. and are prompted to simply observe. When we interact with this miniature universe, it zooms out and shows us essentially the heat death of our universe. Our universe, as we know, is coming to an end. All the stars are coming to the end of their natural life cycles and going supernova. And we are witnessing the end of the universe, essentially. After witnessing the death of our universe, we start to see hundreds of tiny points of light getting brighter and brighter. And as we get closer, we begin to realize that each one of these points of light is an entire universe unto itself. And essentially what we're being shown here is a multiverse with an infinite amount of possible new universes. We then find ourselves wandering about a seemingly endless, dark forest, which we later found out is called the Ancient Glade. And this is basically a metaphorical representation of the eye of the universe, an entity or phenomenon that has always existed since before time, and where time itself has absolutely no meaning whatsoever. Later, we come across a reflection of ourselves, or a mirror image, if you will. This is the game's way of showing us that we have become quantumly entangled. We are both an observer as well as a quantumly entangled entity. The reflection of ourselves then turns into a tree, which seems to progressively age backwards, and this is possibly just showing us that this is renewal, this is the beginning of something new, this is the reversal of time back to the beginning. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. After that, we see a campfire, and we begin the process of gathering all of the various characters together that we've met throughout our journey through Outer Wilds. The significance of this, I think, is basically just to say our final goodbyes. It's essentially like if you go and watch a stage production at the end, all the characters will come out and take a bow. So I think that's all that's going on here. Once everyone has been gathered round, we go to each one of them one by one and ask them to start or to begin, ending off with Solanum, who begins to create a sort of a ball of energy in the middle. On the sides of this ball of energy, we see all kinds of icons and symbols kind of flashing. And essentially what this is representing is just a metaphorical creation of a new universe. All the creatures, all the plants, all the minerals, all the animals, like everything that goes into planets and stars and universes is all kind of being brought together. And simply through the act of observing, we are breathing life into all of these various elements. Finally, we end off with a massive explosion, which is essentially a new Big Bang, signifying the start of an entire new universe. So once the end credits have finished rolling, a title pops up on screen, which reads 14.3 billion years later. And as the camera slowly pans across, we see that there is a group of sentient crickets gathered around a campfire. So we know they're sentient because they at least have mastered the art of fire. So it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke right at the end. But what it does tell us is that a new universe has, in fact, been created. And that brings us to our conclusion. The Nomai believed that the Eye of the Universe was sentient and that was calling out to them. This is still on the table. I mean, it's highly possible. It could just very well be that unfortunate circumstances led to the Nomai being wiped out, and just through dumb luck, the Herthian, which is our character, ended up being the one to meet the Eye of the Universe. But what we do know is that the Eye needs a sentient observer in order to create life. And this must mean that it is some kind of a singularity similar to what must have existed in the early universe just before the Big Bang. So that's my interpretation of the final act of Outer Wilds. That being it's highly possible that was, and that brings us to our conclusion. The Nomai believed that the Eye of the Universe was sentient and that was calling out to them. This is still on the table. I mean, it's highly possible. It could just very well be that unfortunate circumstances led to the Nomai being wiped out, and just through dumb luck, the Herthian, which is our character, ended up being the one to meet the Eye of the Universe. But what we do know is that the Eye needs a sentient observer in order to create life. And this must mean that it is some kind of a singularity similar to what must have existed in the early universe just before the Big Bang. So that's my interpretation of the final act of Outer Wilds. I hope you like this video, guys.
dirty shirt in the wash. We're off like a dirty shirt in the wash.
Hello, everyone. With 5 planets, a few moons, and a few space stations, it's pretty easy to miss out on some of the cool things the developers have put in the game. Since most people only play through it once, I figure I'll make this video to give everyone the chance to see how much love and care was put into the small details in the game. As always, this video will contain spoilers for Outer Wilds. To be honest, there are so many small details in Outer Wilds, I'm not even sure where to start. I guess we can start with the name, Outer Wilds. This is actually the in-universe name the Harthians came up with for their very own solar system. We find they used the name on the map located in our ship. We can also find a poster behind our spacesuit depicting how best to use our little scout. I think the eject button is probably well known throughout the community by now, but I'm not sure how many people know the ship actually has an altimeter. If you go into landing cam mode and look to the right of your screen, you see a tube with a small figurine of the ship inside. It also has a green liquid that will rise or fall according to the level of the surface below. This gives us an estimation of our position relative to the surface. Having this actually makes landing cam something that you can use, but it's something I see a lot of people have no idea about. One of the small details I missed during my first playthrough is actually kind of touching. Before we even leave Timber Hearth, we are able to play hide and seek with a couple of young Harthians. One of the kids, Tefra, tries to hide in the Harthian Museum, but they get kicked out and yelled at by Hornfells. After we find them, we can head up to get our launch codes from Hornfells, and on our way back down to the elevator to get on the ship, Tefra has left their friend to come wish us a farewell. They tell us that they are worried that we might die or get lost out in space just like Feldspar did. After all, we are not as good as an astronaut as Feldspar was, and everyone would be terribly sad if we were to get hurt or lost. Thankfully, we can reassure Tefra that everything is going to be fine. During my first playthrough, I didn't realize this was the same young Harthian that we played with, so it was touching to me to find that out. The Harthians have a few cool things scattered throughout their town as well. Getting on some of the roofs of the houses here, we can find the Harthians actually use solar panels to power their homes in a sustainable fashion. We can also find a bigger version of our little scout in orbit around Timber Hearth. Down on the surface, we can control a camera that's on board this satellite for something called Postcards from Orbit. It lets us stream a real-time image directly to a large screen that's in front of us. The Harthian children probably have a lot of fun playing with this thing, especially if they're also playing with a model ship at the same time. Staying on Timber Hearth, we can head over to the giant waterfall to find a cool little detail. Below the broken bridge, we can see a mural the Nomai had created depicting their arrival on Timber Hearth. A shuttle next to a waterfall and a few trees. But the interesting thing is, both of the Nomai have different colored suits on. The one on the left matches detail. Below the find these detail. Below the detail. During my first play, find these fish in the streams. Bonus, I Nomai and one of the via Nomai shuttle. Something easy to miss unless you're a geologist or a botanist is the naming scheme for characters in Outer Wilds. The Nomai are named after species of plants, while the Harthians are named after different types of rocks. As a bonus, I learned that my cat Solomon is actually named after a potato plant. Fun! Another interesting detail is while the Nomai have gender, the Harthians are a genderless species, not having male or female. One of the stranger details in the game is revealed by another Nomai mural. The mural depicts Nomai having discovered our genetic ancestors, a fish with 4 eyes just starting to grow limbs and emerge onto land. Observant players can actually still find this fish all over the place, but not where you may think. We don't find these fish in the streams of Timber Hearth. We find them in the tin cans and soup of the Outer Wild Venturers. The Harthians actually catch, cook, and eat their genetic ancestors, which, to be honest, is a detail that I could have gone with missing. But, speaking of evolution and biological progression, everybody's favorite scaredy cat, Rebik, is a bit unique among the Harthians. Getting close to them and paying attention reveals that they actually have one more finger than the normal Harthians 3. This is actually probably what allows them to slap on that banjo like a champ. A cool little feature of the Harthian village is they actually have a small cemetery behind one of the buildings. It's nice to see that they pay respects to those who pass, even though this is sort of an Easter egg. This next object is actually an Easter egg as well, but since it's so hard to find and so incredibly easy to miss, I think it's a good place to show the Fig Backer satellite. Satellite put in the game for people who help fund it through a crowdsourced website. They got to choose images or phrases, and we can even hear a Mickey Mouse-like voice say, "We're off, like a dirty shirt in the wash!" Another cool thing sort of like that is the Nomai probe we see launch at the beginning of every loop. If we keep our eye on the probe, we can actually chase it down in our spaceship. And getting close to it, we see it's actually kind of bigger than our spaceship, and has some detail to it. Etched on its side is a symbol depicting the eye of the universe. The fact that the devs put detail into a probe that immediately flies out of the solar system is just amazing to me. Something else I find pretty cool is we can actually ram the volcanic rocks from Hollow's lantern to cause them to break up before they hit the surface of Brittle Hollow. Brittle Hollow for a little while. One thing some people are surprised to learn is how Hollow's lantern actually has something on it. The Nomai actually landed on it somehow, and inside of one of the volcanoes is a Nomai communications board, where the Nomai admit to using it as a volcano forge. This is where they tested the material for heat resistance to use as a protective shield around the Ash Twin we locate Feldspar. Afterwards, we can tell Hornfels that we found Feldspar, but they decided not to immediately come home with us. Hornfels is ecstatic that we found them and that they're safe, but not at all surprised by them not coming home with us right away. Nonetheless, Hornfels is going to send Gossin to try to find them and bring them home. Although thinking about it, we may have just doomed Gossin to a fate inside Dark Bramble. Oh no. Maybe we should hope the sun explodes before they get there. Speaking of Dark Bramble, anglerfish aren't the only life form that we can find there. We can actually find centipedes floating around the interior. It makes sense that these little things could live and thrive off of Dark Bramble's vines. Plus, I think it's cool that there is a bit more life in the solar system. But they're a bit tough to find when you're on a computer. I hear on consoles they're all over the place though. As a bramble bonus, the anglerfish have, like, spikes that stick out as they chase you. And I'd be willing to bet that most people don't turn around and look at anglerfish while they chase you, so not many people probably know about that. This next detail was actually added in an update to the game. Below Church Camp lay an entrance to a cave system in which we can find multiple chambers full of fossilized ancient sea life. When the water dried up here, it left us with a deposit of well-preserved fossils from various species, and some of these things are pretty freaking big. One of each Nomai statue we find throughout the game actually has a corresponding mask inside the Ash Twin projects. Each Nomai would be connected to a statue, and each statue is connected to a mask. Apparently, we're lucky our statue's mask isn't the one lying broken on the floor. At the Nomai construction yard, we can find that the circular grav floors used to make the orbital probe cannon have inactive gravity wells that would allow the Nomai to move parts with ease and precision. They probably use these to get access to hard areas as well, allowing them to perform any work they needed to wherever they needed. The Nomai really made good use of these gravity crystals. We can actually find the birthplace of their on one of the Nomai to utilize the effect. They made an entire workshop to produce them. One cute little detail that is often overlooked is a young Nomai's poem in the temporary city on Brittle Hollow. A young Nomai named Ilix has gotten the artistic bug and has put together something about the black hole. Look out below. Look out for the gravity hole. For should you slip and lose your grip, then into space you'll go. As a bonus, if we look closely at this young Harthian's writing compared to an adult's writing, you can see that the adult Nomai's writing is neat and compact, while the children's writing is all wiggly and overall more messy. The adult Nomai seem to use their staff to write, but I'm guessing the young Nomai had to write by hand to learn the language, and this is why it's all messy. One of the details I find the coolest is how the Nomai projection pole actually uses a liquid below you to project your image to the corresponding pole. This allowed the two Nomai at separate locations to have conversations effectively face to face. And I must say, we look excellent as a golden statue. We should get a tiny version made up for the ship. I didn't realize this until I beat the game several times over, but when I did, it blew my freaking mind. A detail I didn't notice until a kind viewer pointed it out to me is a couple of the symbols the Nomai used. The symbol for the Eye of the Universe has a hollow center depicting its eye shape. But if you take the symbol the Nomai used for the Quantum Moon and plug it into this empty spot, it actually fills in the void and they merge to become one symbol. It's pretty cool that the Nomai use these symbols to show us that the Quantum Moon came from the eye. One of the details I find most interesting about the Nomai and the symbols they left behind is one I can't particularly explain. For some reason, the Nomai encircled each of the white hole teleportation pads with a series of stones. We find this pattern on every planet, with them even freezing them in place on Brittle Hollow's inverted warp pad. On Earth, I think things like this are meant to be a sign to future generations that this location may be important. But really, I have no idea why the Nomai would have done this. In any case, it's interesting as hell, because they had to have a reason to do it, and I'd like to know that reason. As a bonus for the teleportation pads, you can actually use your scout to trigger them and test the waters. We also happen to get a great view of the teleportation in action when we do this. The last few details I have are sorta related to gameplay. Throughout the game, our player character dies repeatedly, and in a variety of wacky ways. Depending on what hijinks we got into last loop, our character will wake up with a different reaction. When we suffocate, our character wakes up gasping for air. If we meditate, we wake up sort of relaxed as if it were all just a dream. One thing I find really cool is they actually made the marshmallow roasting mechanic relatively useful to the player. If we get hurt while out exploring somewhere, and our ship is too far away, all we need to do is find a campfire and pull out our can of marshmallows. Roasting up one of these bad boys to perfection will refill your health bar to full. I honestly didn't notice this until someone told me, but it's a nice little detail. As a bonus for the marshmallows, the supernova will actually catch the whole thing on fire. One of the last details that people may have missed during their playthrough is at the Eye of the Universe. If we teleport there and just watch the sky from the vessel surrounding the eye, we can watch as all the stars slowly begin to fade out. We can watch until the Outer Wild system star explodes, and then the remaining lingering stars begin to blink out one by one, until eventually they are all gone. Now, it's not the happiest detail in the world, but it's something cool they added to depict the universe, and it's something easily missable in the excitement of making it to the eye. As a bonus fact, just so we don't end on a sad note, Rutao, the adorable old Hearthian rocking back and forth in the rocking chair, is actually the mayor of our little crater. The mayor likes to sit next to the Museum of the Outer Wild Adventurers. I bet this is because they are so proud of their species' achievements that this is where they want to be, which I find adorable. But that's about all the small details I can think of right now. The sad thing about it is I'm sure there are probably so many more details that slip right past me in my 170 odd hours of playing the game. I'd like to thank the subscriber Blapature for creating an amazing list of details in the community post when I asked.
Oh, holy shit. No, because it's not right, because the sand has to be. Holy shit.
Our many years of hard work in 10 minutes and 58 seconds.
We mean,
Heard of Outer Wilds?
I'm Logan Verhoof. To the observatory and get the for a while parkour there. Oodix of the village.
In our heart.
We're deeply confused.
This is considered. Nice. We have the codes, and we can go.
I think people have figured out how to get out of the museum.
Yeah. First thing, as we all feel like doing every morning, video game, which is our time
Here to
and they're burning to death. All right. And dying twice unlocks being able to sleep at a campfire.
With just 8 months left before The Last of Us was finished, Naughty Dog finally got to work on the game's user interface. While some of the UI elements had already been roughed out, explains designer Alexandria Neonike, an overall design of the heads-up display had not been established, and many things were still undecided. I think that's testament to the fact that the user interface can be one of the most underappreciated parts of game development, a nuisance afterthought thrown together at the last minute. But if you ask me, it should not be undervalued, because the UI can have a tremendous impact. Ask me, it should not be undervalued, because the UI can have a tremendous impact on the way a game looks, works, and feels. And so, in this episode of Game Maker's Toolkit, I want to explore the intersection of UI and game design to figure out how health bars and stamina meters can change the way we play. Now, UI encompasses a lot of different things, like online lobbies, inventory screens, dialogue trees, crafting menus, store pages, and so on. But for this video, I want to focus on one specific type of UI, the heads-up display, or HUD. That's the stuff that's laid on top of the gameplay while you're in the middle of the action. And so the first question, I guess, is what is the purpose of the HUD and what benefit does it provide to the player? To help answer that question, let me break the HUD down into two distinct parts, which I'll call gauges and previews. Gauges are the ones we usually imagine when we think about HUDs. These are about taking information that would normally be invisible and surfacing it to the player. So a character's health is typically a number hidden in the game's code, but a health bar can reveal this to the player. AI behavior can be inscrutable without visual aids like view cones, movement ranges, and attack indicators. And because of camera limitations, critical info may be hidden off screen unless it's highlighted with indicators or a minimap. Gauges are all about helping the player understand the current or future state of the game world, which allows them to make intentional plans and moves. Here's a case study from the addictive deck builder Slay the Spire. Early in development, enemies would give you no indication of what they were planning to do, so players didn't know whether to block or attack on each turn and ended up playing pretty much randomly. To fix this, developer Megacrit added these indicators, which show you what the enemy will do next. Now the player can make smarter decisions about how to use their hand and concoct satisfying synergistic strategies. So that's gauges. Previews, on the other hand, are about showing you what will happen if you press a button or take an action. In their most simple form, it's those pop-up button icons for contextual actions. You know, press Y to open door, press X to get in vehicle, press E to jump in mass grave, but But a preview could also be something, oh, press E to jump in mass grave, what? But a preview could also be something like an arc that shows you the trajectory of your grenade throw, an indicator which shows you when you're in range of a grapple point, a lock-on to show you which enemy you're targeting, or this line, which shows you exactly where your units will run in XCOM. Previews are all about giving the player a heads up about the consequences of the actions they might take before they commit to them. This allows players to act with confidence instead of blind faith. For this case study, let's turn to Shovel Knight. In the third DLC campaign, Spectre Knight has a dash/slash move, which allows him to slice through certain objects and rocket out the other side. Initially, Yacht Club Games highlighted this interaction with a simple change in the character's pose, but found that this didn't adequately explain when or where this contextually sensitive action could happen, or where Spectre Knight would end up when it finished. In the end, the team slapped on a simple indicator which shows up when you get close to objects. This clearly tells you that the dash/slash will happen when you hit the relevant button, and shows you exactly where you'll travel to when you press it. The reticule was the most important change we made to make the dash/slash understandable, the developer says. So gauges and previews are very handy and will go on without you if you're not paying attention to your watch. Some events are missable, like survivors who call out for help but get eaten by zombies if you're not fast enough,